Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of Goddamn Gamecube. If you like our show, please leave us a rating on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts today. Nick, the intern, is with us as well. And today, this is going to be interesting. We're talking about the original Rayman trilogy. These games are really weird. We're all bundled up here. We've all got blankets on. We're nice and cozy. It's going to be a real cozy recording session today. Riley, why don't you take it away here? The Rayman trilogy. Let's go.
Yeah, isn't this interesting? I mean, so Rayman, he hasn't been in the news lately, but we all feel very strongly about him. He's a very odd property, I would say. You know, kind of just a little bit off the beaten path, like. You know, like most gamers of our age would probably know who he is. Maybe if you're a little younger, you don't. We're going to be talking about the main three games in this episode, starting with Rayman 1, which I will say is one of the most baffling debuts of any video game character or IP.
Yes.
I would say. Small aspects of it carry over into the other games, but the tone and accessibility, like difficulty, I would say are exceptionally unique to this first game. I will say so. It was originally intended for the Super Nintendo. It is a 1995 side-scrolling platformer developed by Ubi Studios and published by Ubisoft back when they were a real company.
Nice.
For the Atari Jaguar, PSX, Sega Saturn, and many more over the following years. So this was designed by Michel Ancel. This guy's name pops up a lot over the years. Based on original ideas he had for the character in the 80s, and directed by Agnès Hegel. The character is named after the animation method called ray tracing, which you may have suspected. I'm not going to pretend to completely understand how it works, but I believe it's a method that they use for, it's like a technique to replicate realistic lighting and conditions. So Rayman, the man, the myth, the legend. The main gimmicks of his character are his fists that he can wind up and throw really far. He is like a disconnected head, a torso, two fists, and 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And he can also helicopter around with his hair. How do you feel about the design of Rayman, folks?
You know, when I was a kid, I thought the helicopter was his ears. I didn't realize it was his hair.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like a
bunny.
It's so interesting. Like one comment I'll make is like the original PC game. Nick and I actually played it on the Game Boy Advance. So we played it. We played the port when we were little.
Right.
And the game looks incredible, and I think Rayman is very iconic. Like maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia for me,
for sure.
but I kind of like that. I always remember him with the disconnected hands and disconnected feet. It's really cute.
Nobody else does it. I don't think. Something I would like to point out, particularly in this game, is how clearly this was made by a French team.
Okay.
You know, like, I don't know how to put it into... Nick, do you know what I'm talking about?
All right, maybe. Hit me.
Okay, so there's something about him that's like, it's a little like... You know, like their cartoons, their like comics or whatever. They're like a little dorky. They're a little
sure.
Like, you know,
yeah.
It's like whimsical. You know, like
Monsieur
Rayman. You know, it reminds me of like I know Tintin is Belgian, but something like that. It's something about him is very quintessentially French, and I hope they own him as a mascot.
Do you know what's really funny on that subject? When I try to sell Rayman to people, I call it French Mario.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
completely.
I just kind of call it Mario, but faster. That's how I tend to describe it, especially when you get to Origins and Legends, which are much later.
Yeah, definitely. They're a lot more fluid. I don't love the way he looks in this game. I think he's like a little like caricatured almost.
It's a little bit glittery eyed and it's a little flashy.
His eyes are gigantic, very derpy.
Yeah.
He's not quite affable Rayman yet.
And that pose is like kind of weird. He's like that hand sticking out. I don't know. It looks kind of meme worthy.
It's really odd.
No, like just in the game, he's just kind of lurching there. Like,
Yeah.
whenever he's not really like,
Yeah.
is this guy checked out? What's going on? But I do like how the general design of the game, how odd everything looks, and how all the like little weird choices they made. Unlike the other two games in this trilogy, there's not like a theme to the things you're fighting. They're just kind of like related to the levels. They're just like random creatures and stuff. And they if they touch Rayman, they damage him. So the main point of discussion for this game is unfortunately going to be us whining about how hard it is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
What do you think makes this game so hard, and is it fair to criticize it in such a way?
So what I think is, to me, it's interesting. I don't know if our audience will find it interesting. It's interesting to me. Like, I am interested in gaming history,
Yeah.
and what trends inspired what things.
Yeah.
So it's very surprising and very humorous to me to think about, like, one of the hardest mainstream games ever made is Rayman 1. Like,
Right.
dude, if you thought, like, Ninja Gaiden was hard, forget it. Like, if you thought Dark Souls was hard, you're a loser.
It's not. I don't believe it's even a minority opinion. It's commonly held belief.
If you were to, make your way through Reddit or the internet, Rayman 1 is one of the hardest games ever. And to a lot of extent, it's not fair. By that, I
Yeah.
mean, the game is not fair. It is, when people say it's the hardest game ever or one of them, they're right. There's a lot of bullshit like in this game.
A ton. And it's what I feel like makes it sort of a valid criticism is that the game's aesthetic and design are very like kid oriented.
Yes.
So it's really like who is this for?
There's a really funny juxtaposition here. This cute, animated, the music's all fun, and then this game just breaks your balls at every single point.
Every turn. So I remember playing the shit out of Rayman 2 at my friend's house, and then going back and playing Rayman 1 on PC.
That's what Nick and I did
And
as kids.
I just couldn't get through it. I think I got as far as the art world. Did you guys get? How far did you guys get?
Nick, this is your moment. How far did you get as a kid playing it straight up?
I got pretty far as a kid. I mean, I finished it this time around, but now that now I can remember, I got up to the Dark Rayman level.
Wow.
as a kid.
That's like almost the end.
Yeah, I couldn't
Okay.
beat it, but I couldn't beat it, so I never finished the game.
It's fucking tough.
Well,
Yeah.
should we declare to the audience that in preparation for this episode, we played Rayman Redemption?
Yes. So this is. I looked before we started this because these games are super old now. I was like, what's the ideal way to play all of these? This is apparently a fan recreation called Rayman Redemption, and it features some balancing. Like you get all of his abilities from the start, which I can see kind of that's a bold move because it's kind of tied to progressing and getting his helicopter or his fists or whatever. But I think they make the game better.
Can you imagine? Like, I don't know how I did this as a kid.
I have no idea.
Like, you only start off, if this game were no power-ups at all, you start off with the grimace thing. That's the only and jumping, I guess. That's the only action you could do.
Oh, I didn't even know you could grimace in this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the only action you can do. It doesn't do anything as far as I'm concerned.
That answers that
but
question for
you can
later.
only grimace.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of gating stuff around, like making a little Metroidy, but
Yeah, there's a sense of progression, but
Yeah.
I mean, basic actions are unlockable in this
like
game. It's
ledge
so
grabbing
hard.
and stuff.
I do remember unlocking
crazy.
ledge grabbing as a kid on Game Boy Advance. Like, oh my God, this rules.
Yeah,
I can't believe you had enough patience as a kid to play it.
I don't believe it either.
Yeah.
because I don't really enjoy a lot. I mean, this is contentious in a lot of games, but I don't like this game enough to want to go back and play the levels again with new abilities. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
so that's kind of a little barrier. I think finite lives were also a huge blunder.
Yes.
I think the game is challenging enough without
The
them.
game is so hard, and having finite lives makes it so much harder. And in the fan recreation, that's eliminated.
Yeah.
If you choose to.
Yeah, sure.
If you choose to.
It's an option at least.
I mean, I had I guess it's hubris at this point. I did start this fan recreation with finite lives.
Right,
I
yeah.
didn't turn that on until later. But you know why it's really unforgiving in this title in particular compared to maybe other action adventure platformers? Is in this one, every single, I guess I'll call it zones, have
Yeah.
multiple parts to them.
Right.
And if you run out of lives, you have to start at the very first one again.
Yeah,
which is really
this is
the
such-
first part.
the first
Yes.
part of
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
okay.
This
And
is
that's
such a
hard.
strange game for me to think about, where it looks so kid friendly and it's
Yeah.
so cute,
Yeah.
but it is so balls hard.
Yeah,
I
I don't
can't. I also can't believe how well it sold and how popular it was.
That's the
at
weird
the time.
thing.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Hard games back then, I think, were pretty popular.
Well, this
Everybody wanted to play
when
them.
was the original release of this? 95.
95.
It was not. I mean, it looks incredible for a 1995 game.
Yeah, it really. I love that. That it's kind of the tail end, I guess, of like the Super Nintendo or
Yeah.
beginning of PSX. It's got those really crisp sprites.
Yes.
Yeah, everything looks. All the art direction is great too. But I would say also compared to something like Mario or even Donkey Kong, that Rayman is like relative to the size of the screen, like bigger and floatier than them.
Yes.
And there are a lot of like enemies and obstacles that are you have to be really like dead on balls accurate, like just very pinpoint. They hit you with like perfect accuracy and like very extreme speed, and the hitboxes are not very generous either.
No.
And not only that, there are also a lot of blind jumps because this is a side scroller, so you can't really see.
And there's also that this was awful. I don't even know what to call it. You have to go to a certain area in a level and it makes some sort of noise and it unlocks other parts, like a platform might appear.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's just like
There's a
wild
lot of
to me.
like
Some Castlevania 2 shit.
there's a lot of invisible platforms, but if you walk to a certain section or touch a thing, platforms appear.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. This game is incredibly hard.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I guess you really just have to be exploring, or have the will to explore, but it's hard to know what kind of consequences it's going to have.
I feel like this is the kind of game where like you would endure this for months or if not years to actually beat it.
You'd
'Cause
have to, yeah.
The last, there's so many points I want to bring up, but another major point I want to make is in the original release, you need to get all the cages to beat it.
Yeah.
You cannot, you have to 100% it to beat it.
That's one of the few things that carries over into the other games, is that you have to like free like the creatures of the world or whatever.
But you don't have to free them all in the other games.
No.
In this game, you
no.
have to free them all.
to finish it.
Yeah.
And I believe they changed that in the version we played.
Yes.
But it is pretty exacting. At release, it received very positive reviews. That everybody was super into the animation, the atmosphere, and the music. And so I wanted to ask you guys what you think of the sound and music in this game.
So I loved it, honestly, most of it at least.
Okay.
I thought the sound effects were really great. I thought some of the level tracks were pretty good, like the Bandcamp, whatever that level's called.
Yeah, that was fun.
I like the music behind there.
We're
Yeah.
going to talk about it later, but I think Bandcamp was very influential for Rayman Legends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely it was.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, I enjoyed the sound design.
There's something, this is a funny anecdote that's only funny to me and certain people. I remember, was it Blue Mountain? I don't remember what it was. In this game, there was a part of the soundtrack. I think they used a synth patch preset that I've also used. Like, because I happen to have a 1990s like keyboard workstation right in front of me.
This would be the era.
Yeah, and I was like, I think I've played that before.
Yeah.
It was really funny.
I think it was, for me, kind of inconsistent. Like some of the tracks I was really into, and other ones were just kind of annoying.
Yeah,
you get that?
sure.
Like, I don't know. It's a lot of the sounds are really odd. Like when you clear the level and it's like that weird like fanfare.
Yes.
And he like screams.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing that when I beat some of these.
Yeah, he's like in a football stadium scoring touchdowns.
It's pretty fucking quirky. I would say that the biggest strengths of the game are how creative the level ideas are.
Yeah.
I would say, I think you guys are going to talk more about this in a different episode, but I think Rayman Origins and Legends are both better than this game in a lot of respects, but I don't remember anything that really went crazy. Like the Ink Thunderstorm in this game I thought was awesome.
Yep.
What are any highlights for the levels for you guys?
In Rayman 1?
Yeah.
I really like in Bandcamp when you jump on the cymbal, it makes a little crash sound.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's cute.
There is some stuff that really irritated me, like the water rising, and you have to. You remember this? You have to carve ropes while the water is rising.
Yes.
That was interesting
yeah.
too.
You know, a similar
It's
vein.
tense.
I kind of, in a way, I liked it. In a way, I didn't, because there were some levels of that where you had to plant the flowers, watch them grow,
The magic
jump on them.
beans.
Yeah, you had to plant the magic beans. I'm like, oh my god, this is so stressful. But I kind of loved it.
Yeah.
I think that was good tension.
Yeah.
There were other moments where it's like this. I think the timing is a little too slim.
Yeah, I agree.
I really enjoyed the creativity of the band level, and I like the arts and crafts world, and I think the candy world is awesome.
Yep.
Haven't seen something like that in a while. I was going to make a joke about can you tell which world was created by a fan, but I think it's actually pretty good. Can you?
I actually
what I'm
don't know
talking
which
about?
level. I believe you told us one level in Rayman Redemption is originally
Yeah.
original made by
One
the fan.
one of the worlds.
Yeah.
One of the select. Can you
What
I
is
had no
it?
idea.
It's the toy world.
Wow.
I thought it was because I believe there was a level designer that probably had all those assets.
Yeah,
And I thought it was great. It was like
I love that. There
all
was some
the
cool
like
stuff.
the keys and all the chess pieces that could move
Oh my
differently
God,
depending on
yeah.
like what kind
What
of
piece
piece
of-
they were.
Yes,
That was awesome.
No, that's a very well done fan world.
It integrated it pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, it definitely on theme here.
I think that my favorite part of this game is actually Evil Rayman, like you were discussing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so because I don't remember Evil Rayman in any of the other games.
I don't believe he exists in other games. Wait, just take that as
Like,
a
wait
blanket
a second.
statement. Can I?
No,
Say,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it felt really nice to get revenge on Evil Rayman when I couldn't beat him as a kid. And you know what I did to finally be done with Evil Rayman? In Rayman Redemption, there is a custom cheat where you can just make Evil Rayman disappear. When I
Really?
before I finished the level, I turned around, faced him, and put in that cheat to make him just disappear. Like,
That's
you know
awesome.
what?
Fuck you.
I'm done. Get
Yeah.
out of here.
I had at one point, I did a couple without it, but I did one with like invincibility turned on. So
Oh,
when
yeah.
he catches up with you, he just kind of hangs out. But it's cool. It's really odd. It's like this guy who looks just like you, and he's chasing you. He's gonna kill you if he touches you.
Die in
But-
one hit. It's rough.
some Death Stranding shit. But no, what I wanted to acknowledge also is that the original game just kind of awkwardly ends. But this remake, this is one of the better remakes I've played. It's like
It's by a
just kind
fan.
of like makes all the little correct choices. Originally the Candy World was just one level, so you flesh that out completely. And there's that fake final boss that's like a remix of, it's like they're like chimeras,
Yes.
like of all the previous bosses. And like whenever you do, you're in like this stained glass cathedral, and all their faces are on
that
it.
was cool.
And when you damage like the relevant boss, like it lights up, and like, oh man, that was awesome.
that was really cool. I
It's
loved that.
Nice touch.
Yeah, whoever made this, like, good for you.
Big round of applause. Even the fake boss was great. of
Yeah.
the Toy World, the Goblin guys.
I think
those
the
are great.
bosses are generally pretty well designed.
They're cool. They're
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
I
sometimes
think,
really hard,
I think it's
but-
just like, yeah, the spacing, like in some of them is really exacting.
Yeah.
But no, so in this version there is also that full like end game set piece.
Yes.
On that like the big like almost Bloodborne kind of
Yeah.
like flying creature that wasn't in the original game at all.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
oh wow. Okay.
So all that, and it felt very tonally appropriate to me, to Rayman. And a nice little twist is like once you defeat Mr. Dark,
yes,
is the villain.
Mr. Dark.
It's just some weird evil magician. And when you do that, it does the opposite of what it has been doing when it rains down like that dark plasma or whatever from above instead of below. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, nice inversion, right,
Nice
to close
touch.
us out here.
Yeah.
But no, I overall it's like it's not my favorite game, but I just have to respect how good of a job they did, like
Yeah.
kind of touching it up a little bit. Ultimately, I believe 900,000 copies of the game were sold worldwide within the first 2 years of its release, which is a respectable figure. For perspective about like popularity, like Donkey Kong Country was 500,000 within a week.
Right.
So
Yeah, okay.
it's like, you know, but maybe special circumstances, but that's just, so he's Rayman. He may not have physical legs, but he's got some financial legs.
Yeah.
I like
You know what
that.
I mean?
Well,
like
I
that.
consider Rayman to be like one of the I don't know what the right word for this is. One of the more popular platforming characters of that era, like
Yeah.
early 2000s,
Sure.
Yeah,
late 90s,
definitely.
at least to me.
Like he fits in with like Crash Bandicoot and
Yeah,
Spyro and all that
Similar
shit.
tier of popularity.
I almost
think.
feel like Rayman's almost like the cool option when like you ask the people in your life who are into games, you played Rayman 2, they're like, fuck yeah. I have
Yeah. Yeah. So we want to do some final thoughts about the first Rayman.
Wow. I think this game is really, I consider it really a game for your gaming education
Yeah.
more than anything else. The original is, I'm going to say this in a nice way, the original is unplayable because you really can't finish it.
Yeah.
So I am so surprised at how many copies it sold, how many times it was ported.
Yeah.
And it's still balls hard in every version. I think what jumped out to me is it's a 1995 game and the art style and sprite quality is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's probably what it looks like and how it influenced the later ones is very interesting.
Because
to me.
you look at like what Link to the Past was a couple years prior.
Yeah.
And it's like, that game looks great, but it's not like
this is like vibrant.
very. Yeah.
Yep.
Nick, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad I played this game. It's not my favorite game of all time by any means, but I'm glad I got to experience it. I can kind of see why it was so popular back then. I mean, as a 90s game, an early to mid 90s game, it's very, very difficult. And that difficulty is still, even with this fan-made version, nothing's toned down at all.
No.
But I love the art. I thought everything surrounding the game was pretty good. The level design was excellent as well, and it's a lot of creative ideas.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I played it. Did I have like a blast and I loved playing it? No, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Riley, do you have any final thoughts? Will we go into grades or how did you want to do this?
Do we want to do grades at the end for like all three?
Yeah,
Maybe?
why don't we
just,
do that?
I'll just say, it's not something that I would like jump out of my seat and go play, but I respect it. It's very, very odd, and I think a lot of the ideas are very creative.
Yeah.
But with that said, let's move on to Rayman 2. Oh baby.
Oh baby.
Oh baby. All smiles. All smiles.
I'll
here.
reiterate what I said a few minutes ago. Rayman 2 to me is one of the cool guy games that you can play.
Yeah.
Like if you're into games and your friends are into games and you say, dude, Rayman 2, and if your friends if they give you the nod that they love it, you feel like you're in the know if you've played this game.
And it's something about, we're gonna get into all the little details, but there's something about this that it captures that moment so well, and there's something about the feel and the atmosphere. It's so special, and I'm so glad that looking online, that's not like an unpopular opinion. Like a lot of people like put it on like all-timer lists and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not recently, but it is very near and dear to my heart. I would like to get into this in detail. This game was directed by Michel Ancel, who was only the creative lead last time. It was originally going to be a 2D follow-up like the previous game, but they switched gears halfway through development. Have you guys seen any of that like pre?
No, actually.
No.
It's pretty much just like the first game, but a little different.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so they threw that out. The game was developed by UB Pictures, now Ubisoft Montpellier, and published by Ubisoft in 1999. Feels like yesterday. So the premise this time is that the Robo Pirates are amazing, invade and shatter the heart of Rayman's universe into 1,000 pieces, which are called yellow lums. And Rayman is imprisoned at the beginning of this game. He's put the man in jail, and he has to escape, and he has to journey through his blighted world and awaken this ancient god to heal it. And oh my god, my heart's all aflutter. There are multiple versions of this game. It was originally developed primarily for N64, but the PC port features a little bit higher quality frame rate, graphics and texture resolution, and some higher quality sound and music. You want to say?
Actually, the sound and music is very different. on the PC versus the N64. Like you kind
a
of
lot more texture.
You kind of hear tales about how the N64 could not process audio at a high level.
Yeah.
And there's a really great YouTube video where they do comparisons of Rayman 2 PC versus N64. There are instrumental layers just pulled out of the N64 version.
And that's what shocked me, because I originally played it with my friend, like a couple levels on his N64. And then you go to the PC version, I'm like, oh my God.
The music in this game is great too. A lot of iconic soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess lastly, I just want to mention that the Dreamcast version is considered to be like the definitive.
Yes.
Like it is even higher quality overall. It adds a few extra areas, I think like hubs and stuff like that. So you played the 3DS version, Greg?
So we should go into some history here. So Nick and I owned this on the N64 as kids.
Yeah.
We got all the way to the end and never finished it.
On PC as well.
And we
did play it on
also
PC.
had it on PC back in the 90s, also got all the way to the end and never finished it.
Wow.
And so I recently played the 3DS version all the way through. The 3DS version is the Dreamcast version straight up.
Right.
So
and
it is the same.
I was concerned because it got terrible reviews. You had no issue with it?
There were no issues with the 3DS port. Don't be scared of the 62 Metacritic score. Like it's totally fine.
I wonder what happened to that.
It's
weird.
from what I understand, Rayman 2 was also ported to the DS. And
that one I did play and it sucked.
Yeah, and so what happened was they just ported the Dreamcast version to the 3DS and did nothing.
Okay.
So it's a lazy $40 grab by the publisher.
Okay.
But the game is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah, I mean, so you had the Isle of Doors, which is the hub, and
Yes.
we had, I believe, the Hall of Doors.
The Hall of Doors,
right?
yes.
So which one's better? Let's
You know what's
hash it
interesting?
out.
I actually think the hall. You guys, wait. Do I have the Isle and you have the halls?
You have the island.
So I actually, it could be nostalgia, but I really like the Hall of Doors better because I liked the camera view is very close to Rayman, and I like watching him run to each level.
Yeah.
In the Isle of Doors, it's very everything is zoomed out and it doesn't
Right.
feel as intimate.
The island almost reminds me itself a little bit of Crash Bandicoot.
Yes.
You go from world to world.
So I have a question for you, Greg, about your island of doors here.
Yes.
So for the Hall of Doors, it's all very zoomed in. When you go to each individual world or area, on the opposite side of Rayman, there will occasionally be like either a silhouette or like a character, like on some maybe glove boxes jumping around. Was there anything like that in the island? It's not there.
No. So
Okay.
what's also interesting about could be the 3DS version, but I'm pretty sure that it's the Dreamcast. It's just straight up. In the island version that I played, when you approach a level, it also does not tell you your progress on the level until you enter.
Oh, really?
So it doesn't tell you how many lums and cages you have until you enter it.
That's weird,
It's
right?
a weird thing.
really strange.
You'd think that would be like a quality of life thing that they added to the game.
Yeah.
Not
It was
take
taken
away.
out.
No, I like the aesthetic of the Hollow Doors a lot.
do
It's
too.
like this cosmic river. It's like of stars.
Yeah.
that
Well,
you
also I
can
really
walk
like the
around.
soundtrack in the Hall of Doors too.
Wait, is Isle of Doors a different soundtrack?
No, it just
Okay, it's
to
all the
me
same.
like there's this intimacy where Rayman is really close and you're watching him run and the soundtrack's really loud.
Yeah.
And like the
Yeah.
3DS version, obviously audio quality on a handheld is not very good
Yeah.
as it is, and it's very zoomed out. I feel very disconnected.
Sure.
Do you
yeah.
still jump into the levels?
Yeah, you
Okay.
do.
All right.
That-
I'm glad that's
that's a-
there.
But
a
it's
cool
cooler
thing.
for you guys because it's right in your face.
Yeah. I did want to mention also, this is kind of going to lead into the next point here. The PSX version is pared down even further, but the PS2 version is expanded. It has even more hubs. It has a couple additional cutscenes and a new boss encounter. But both of these have full voiceover, but the original Raymanish speech is only an option in PS2. So what do we think about Raymanish?
That it was one of the most iconic parts about my gaming childhood.
Yeah.
Was I called it Rayman gibberish. Or
Yeah.
would you call it Raymanish?
That's
cute.
You got the fan name for it?
I think so.
I really like the Rayman speak. I thought it was very, very cute. The real voice acting, it's not as what's the word? It's not as unique. It's not as
I haven't
iconic.
even listened to it for this game.
I did a little bit when I saw the I watched a YouTube video that showed the intro cutscene
Right.
when it was fully voice acted. I'm not saying it was bad, but it felt weird. Not in Rayman.
Do you know what Rayman, the Raymanish reminds me of? It reminds me of games of that time where Ocarina of Time, there's no voice acting, you have to read it.
Yeah.
Or like,
I love that.
essentially Banjo-Kazooie has gibberish too.
Yes, same kind of thing.
But like you have to read it, but you're given little sounds of what people sound like.
Yeah.
And it creates these like cute little audio memories in my brain from playing it.
You know what it is too? I feel like especially voice acting of that era tends not to
It's
be
low.
remembered
No.
very fondly, but this Raymanish language, it holds up well and it ages very well.
Well,
Yeah.
last point, I just think the Raymanish, it gives you a sense of mysticism. But when
Yeah.
you have regular voice actors, you take a little bit of that away because they're speaking English to you, or
Yeah.
depending on
Well,
your language
it-
of choice. But
yeah.
It completely, it makes it feel like a completely different universe.
yeah.
And it's really endearing. It makes you use your imagination a little bit. And I like you said, I think it holds up so much better for it. And you know what else? I don't think any of the voices like annoy me.
No.
You know?
No, me neither. No,
They
that's
all
right.
have like kind of a little bit of a musical timbre to them. You know, so they all have like Lee the fairy's
Yeah.
voice is like, I don't even know what you'd call that, like weird like effects pedals.
Yeah.
Everyone sounds completely different. I mean, so we do Murphy, the little tutorial guy. We do his voice a lot. He's like a little whisper guy.
I mean, I do that little whisper thing out loud just out of context of Rayman. I just do it.
It's so delightful. I'm really into also the Razorbeard's voice or all
Yes.
the pirates, and I really want to. I'm not someone who's, we all know, I'm not easily startled, but the guy, the evil magician, I believe his name is Jano.
Yes.
His voice is so fucking terrifying. It's just like this abrasive, just nonsense.
Yes.
Just crackling of bones. Like it's
Yeah.
really strange.
Oh my god, it's really disturbing.
It is.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop a potentially controversial take here.
Uh-oh.
I think that I really like all the little derivations, but I don't like the main theme at all.
Of what?
Rayman's, like when you get the title card and it's like the da na 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 na.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's kind of cheap.
And well, here's the thing: is it kind of cheap? Yeah, but I like how they do a lot of variations on
Exactly.
it. So I think bum, ba bum, ba dum bum bum is in
like,
there too.
They put like little hints of it, like
It's
when
almost
you
like-
respawn or
They
whatever.
call that a leitmotif? Is that what they call that?
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
I was literally about to say that. You get a little motif work.
Yeah.
Because they kind of do it even in Hall of Doors as well, like
Yeah.
very
Yes.
slow and trippy.
Yeah.
I think I like all those. They just the main. When you really want to get into Rayman 2, it's like, it's a little cringy to me.
You know, I'm glad you say that because, like, when I remember, if I'm thinking of my childhood of this game, when I think of the music,
Yeah.
I think of the Hall of Doors version of the
Yeah.
main theme, not the one on the title card.
Yep, me
It's
too.
great. I really like the tutorial level music, that weird like guitar song.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Very chill. And I did want to mention also that the score is like dynamic.
Yeah.
Over the course of a level, like I remember I had a little moment of apprehension when you get to the marshes this time, when you're riding on the snake guy.
Yes.
Sam.
Yeah, just because of like, it's a really creepy atmosphere at first, and it's playing that scary music, and then like once you pretty much use them as like a jet ski or like water ski or whatever
Yep.
the fuck you want to call it, but like it plays this really like upbeat music, and it's like a fun level, but I'm like the atmosphere kind of I don't know, but what happens is you get up to a point in that level, and those like those like ghosts that are like
Yes.
birds. They're like they show up and they bring back like a little bit of the creepy music. I'm like, that's awesome. It's like,
you know what? I feel like I know Rayman's such a long franchise. I was gonna say the Rayman franchise, they care more about like audio and music and motifs and music more than a lot of games that I've played.
absolutely.
Like even, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to talk about Legends, but that's later. But it's just obvious to me that music is a really integral part of your gaming experience beyond just the soundtrack.
Yeah.
In all of these games.
completely.
Yep.
I wanted to also mention that the art design for this game was influenced primarily by the American animator Tex Avery, who did a lot of Looney Tunes characters.
I can
Okay,
see
makes
that.
sense.
And
Yep.
also, which this unlocked a lot for me, Hayao Miyazaki, the anime guy, like the flying pirate ships and all that stuff. That feels very like out of his
techno
wheelhouse.
pirates.
Yeah, okay.
So who are some of your favorite characters in this game? Like your character designs, character voices.
I love Glubbox, right?
He's a great sidekick because he's not in the first one.
No.
I don't know if is this a good time for me to tell my Glubbox story from the doctor's office?
Yes,
is this a good time?
I don't think there's going to be any better
There's going to be
time.
no other time to talk about this.
Yeah.
I remember like this was like 4 years ago. Like I dislocated my shoulder, and so when I was at the doctor's, they told me that I sublexed my shoulder, and I said I Glubboxed my shoulder, and they just looked at me and said, "No, you sublexed your shoulder."
Oh boy.
No, I love.
Some people just will never understand.
You know, I love Sam too, but he's only there for a little.
Yeah.
The snake. Isn't he like sad or something like that?
Yeah, he's like.
He always says something like, well, you know, something like he doesn't get to hang out much with Rayman or something like that.
I mean, think about it. I'd be pretty sad too if I was just chilling out in that really creepy swamp with all these ghosts hanging around. You have some evil magician in the back corner.
Yeah, that's the fucking stuff of nightmares. But do you guys know about even like the dark fate of Sam?
No.
Okay, well we're gonna get into this much later.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, he's great. I like Clark a lot.
Yeah.
I wish we saw more of him. I like Clark.
You only get him twice, but he's awesome. He's a good friend.
Good dude.
Okay, so what do you guys think? We got to get into it. What do you guys think of the main villains of this tale?
I can start. So
Sure.
I love the Robo Pirates and I love Admiral Razorbeard, and here's why.
Yes.
Because like for some reason, this is a very quirky, bizarre, goofy game, but in the first like 2 minutes, you're already given this very oppressive, threatening atmosphere, even though these guys are so cartoony.
Yeah.
Like one of the first cutscenes is prison ship. Prisoners on board, 20,000. You're like, oh shit! All these guys in cages. They're goofy looking, but they are threatening.
Well,
and I love them for
what
it.
I tend to agree with, I never say this, but I generally agree with the internet on this, where Rayman 2 is the most effective one because they give you almost like an oppressive goal from the start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of what you need to do. Like it's very clear that something bad is happening.
It's the world is terrible. It's all like overcast.
Right.
It's very. I mean, I think that's the primary accomplishment here is that they feel like they thread that needle of feeling threatening, but also very funny.
And it's almost like, I don't know what the right word for this is, where I call them the techno pirates. Are they technically the robo pirates?
That's what they call them in the game.
Okay,
Robo.
so it's almost like Rayman lives in this like lush, cute world, and technology has come upon his world too.
Yeah.
So anyway, they have a pirate ship with cannons and missiles on it.
Yeah.
And they're almost like bringing technology and metal into like, your natural world that you live in.
Yeah.
So it feels very oppressive, like someone has invaded your space.
Completely.
They're also enslaving all your people. So I mean, there's that there.
I mean, it's also, there's a lot of like weird and strange creatures in Rayman's world, but their visual language is so different.
Yeah.
So robotic. And it's a great thing because their presence is everywhere in this game, but it never, for me at least, got to that point where it's like, I'm tired of looking, because it's all like this industrial shit.
Yeah.
That can get old fast, but it does it in this game for me. I think it's very interesting to look at.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, they're great. Razorbeard is amazing. He's a perfect kind of little Napoleonic figure. I did want to mention an early draft of the game offers some lore reasoning behind their existence and appearance here.
Oh.
Where the robots were under the employ of a mysterious guild who were imprisoning creatures from Rayman's world to put them in an intergalactic zoo.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
wow.
Because
So
that's interesting because a lot of Rayman's friends and him are animals, essentially.
Yeah,
kind
pretty
of.
much, yeah. So, how do you guys feel about the way this plays now?
Rayman 2?
Yeah.
I think this sucks, but it really depends on the port you play.
Yeah.
Like playing on the 3DS, I could use an analog stick and it plays just fine. But I
Yeah.
believe on PC, there is no controller support and you have to WASD and keypad your way to move?
Arrow keys, but
Arrow
Yeah,
keys, essentially.
there's a fan mod that lets you use a controller, but I didn't find it until I was like pretty far in. And I'm like, I don't want to fuck with this too much just in case I mess up my save.
I think with an analog stick, this game is less frustrating. I remember as a kid, the camera's an issue, and running around with Rayman and platforming with the wonky camera is difficult.
Yeah.
But in terms of the Dreamcast version, it's all smoothed over.
Right.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems
I know
with
you
the
did.
controls. I don't want to dog on it too much. It's a game from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
You can't remap the buttons, but I don't know if you can really expect it of a game of that era. You can't.
Yeah.
So I don't want to dog on it too much for its controls and camera. Name 100 games from that era, and 90 of them will have a bad camera.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how it was back
Well,
then.
it was early 3D games.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
So it's just kind of like, you know what, we kind of have to just take it as it is.
Yeah.
My issue was I had a lot of sensitivity issues. Like I hit the space bar, he doesn't throw the fist. I'm
Really?
like, what the
Right.
hell's going on here?
Okay.
It wasn't my keyboard sensitivity that at one point I cranked that up, but it still wasn't working super well for me. The game ran
weird.
just fine on my computer, but I don't know. Sometimes like the directional aiming wasn't right. I would press spacebar and Rayman would just aim somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It made some parts a really frustrating experience for me.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to invalidate that at
Yeah.
all. I just didn't have that experience.
Yeah, no, that's
at
totally
all.
fine. I don't know. I'm also could just be bad at the game. we can't rule that out.
So I didn't have any sensitivity issues. Definitely a couple camera ones in there. But for me, I just wanted to draw. I just recently replayed Donkey Kong 64, which came out, I think, the same year.
I think you're right. 99.
And,
Did it? Oh wow.
And so it's so crazy because this game the movement feels so much more deliberate, where it doesn't have that like early 3D where you're like ice skating because of the
Yes.
sensitivity.
Yep. Yep.
Like you have to, play with it a little bit. Every footstep to me felt like deliberate. I think a lot of the ledge grabs are very forgiving. I think the helicopter hair physics feel fair. Like you don't drop too fast. And, you kind of have to really wrench the camera. You're going to mash that control key, but you can, it wasn't an issue for me that much. I rarely felt that like a missed jump wasn't my fault.
No, I would agree with that. Can I make a really strange comparison right
Sure.
now?
Yeah.
I'm not comparing this to a game. This is a really, just bear with me here. I swear I'm going to get to something. So are you guys familiar with American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah.
All right, if our audience is not familiar, series of like these strength and agility exercises, and it all takes place over a pool of water.
Yeah.
Okay.
If a contestant so much as grazes that pool of water, they are out.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Rayman 2.
Yeah.
If you you have to be pretty deliberate and pretty precise with a lot of these jumps.
Yeah.
The ledge grabbing is definitely very forgiving, but
Yeah.
if Rayman's pinky toe lands in some sort of hazard,
those
done.
weird
Yeah.
vines.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
always,
Yes.
they're like living vines.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's pretty precise in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, yeah, you can but you know what I did find remarkable about it? How quick you're back in the action.
Yes.
It's awesome.
No loading screen.
It's you die,
Very
or
little.
you whatever happens to him when he sort of
All right,
dies.
Can I just say I have one strange issue with quote unquote dying in Rayman 2, at least on the original PC version.
Yeah.
Okay, so Murphy kind of lies to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Or the game is not really clear what quote unquote death is. So green lums mark your progress, right?
Yes.
If you, in the PC version, you fall in a pit or get knocked out or whatever, you lose a little bit of HP and you go back to the green lum.
Right.
To me, that's not dying.
No.
When you lose all your HP in game over, you
That-
go right back to like a cutscene or the beginning of the level.
Yes.
So I don't know. For me, that was like, oh.
Yeah, the checkpoints aren't quite clear when they happen.
Right. So I was
Or
oh,
like
that's a
in
little
what
lame.
Like what they mean.
in what
Yeah.
death state do you go back to one?
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
clear.
I think for the most part, I think I got one game over
Yeah.
in like the sanctuary
Right.
later on, but no, that's a good point. I did want to get into lums a little bit here.
Sure.
I thought it was interesting that this is probably for technical reasons the only one where Rayman doesn't throw his fist. It's like a
You throw a little ping pong ball.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. It's weird because this is to me the like iconic Rayman game.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that special move because I guess that's the advantage of it. It's not attached to his body, so he can throw his fist at something. But I think the combat is a little simple. I would say that the following game, for to its credit, does a little bit more with the same kind of system of like the lock-on strafing and stuff. There are a couple late game enemies which present a little bit more of a challenge, but it's pretty straightforward.
The
right?
combat's mostly fine for what it wants to do. I think it accomplishes it pretty
I
well.
think it's so funny because Rayman 2 is the one I played first, so it's just more nostalgic to me that the fist that's attached to nothing is throwing something. You're not throwing the fist.
Right, right.
It's very iconic. Like it's in my brain as a little kid of Rayman like throwing his hand back and forth and tossing the ping pong ball.
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
And you know what's cool too? I do like how you can get some physics going in your favor.
can bounce them.
It'll bounce off walls. Like
Yeah.
if you want to hit this cage, maybe you can angle it off a wall to hit the cage instead of like going some other direction to go and get it. It's kind of cool
you
in
can
that
only
way.
hit them that way.
Yeah.
Like there's actually a cool mini boss encounter where this creepy spider thing is hiding behind pillars and you have to either bounce them or turn around when he's chasing you and sneak up on him.
Yes.
That stuff's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So I love lums as a concept. I wanted to get, you may not have thought twice about them, but I just wanted to have a little lum speech here. So they're like, to me, if the midi-chlorians in Star Wars didn't suck ass.
Okay.
It's like, because they're like the microscopic being that lets people feel the force. It's like seen as a very hacky move by George. But this is like everything seems to be made of lums. Like when Rayman dies, he turns into lums. And it's like, it seems like there's some kind of energy. So you mentioned the green ones are like your checkpoints. The red ones heal you. The yellow ones you have to collect, and the purple ones are like the hoops that you swing
And the
from.
blue ones are air bubbles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
So another thing with respect to the yellow ones, which are like the fabric of the universe, the more of them that you collect, that the more like lore about the world that you have access to.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even know that until I played it this time around. I
Really?
had no idea there was a lore part.
They tell you, like, it's a little codex, tells you about
Yeah.
like all the characters in the game and how the world was formed. And I think so. This and the cages are the only collectibles.
Yes.
And that makes them feel so much more valuable to me. Like, like we play, not to rag on it forever, but fucking Horizon, where you have like a million little things to collect. And it's like, no.
Well, also the thing
It's
you're
garbage.
collecting in Rayman is the main plot.
Exactly.
Right. The world is made up of lums and you are collecting them and there's a counter.
Yeah.
You want to save the lums, so you're more inclined to go out of your way to get them.
Yeah.
And not only that, they unlock later levels,
Yes.
etc. So, and I think every 10 cages you get the health boost.
Yep.
So
Yeah, is that what that is? Yeah.
you get the motive. So it's a nice little handshake between gameplay and story, right? And I think for a game of this size, 1,000 was the perfect number too, right?
I'd say
What's
so.
funny? We should mention there's a really funny part in the beginning where Razorbeard eats one.
Yes.
So the counter goes from 1,000 to 999.
Yes.
Which is really funny.
But you can find the 1,000th one later on.
Yes.
which we'll mention. So I did want to mention that other factor where the yellow lums are required to enter boss levels. Their requirements aren't like that strict, so I'm wondering if maybe there was a better way of like gating them off or a more interesting way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, Nick, we were talking about this earlier. What's the requirement? 550?
I believe you only need to collect 550 lums in total to
Okay.
beat
Beat
the
it.
game.
I think
Yeah.
I got like 770, 800,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
I think, that's one complaint. Maybe another would be that the boss levels, they really like hype them up. They're not like that different from the other levels.
I mean, like the sanctuaries and all that? Yeah, not really.
Yeah, and the bosses themselves aren't great.
No, I mean, compared to other bosses of the time, which, I mean, Ocarina of Time was out at this time.
Yep.
DK64 is out. There's other comparable bosses that are better in
Yeah.
similar games.
Yeah.
I would
Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, I would say, we'll get to the specific one at the end, which I think is great, but the like Guardians or whatever, they're pretty whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
the
a huge fan of
stalagmite
them.
stuff, it's eh.
Yeah.
You know what I don't like about them? It's like Rayman has these powers, like shooting the fist. He gets upgraded fists throughout the game, but you don't really use them to beat bosses.
Yeah.
I believe the only way to beat the big bosses of this game is to either use the environment against them or repel things back
It's
at
very
them.
basic.
You don't really use Rayman's power to do it, which is
There's-
kind of disappointing.
I did like that one guy that fucking walks into the lava. That's like his, like...
oh yeah, you don't have to do anything. He just walks there. That's true.
It's like has a subtitle like he's the guardian
Right,
of
he
whatever.
just walks in the
and
lava.
It's like suits me just fine.
That's right.
I wanted to mention though that the bonus stage you unlock by 100%ing a level, I think it's dumb.
You mean sprinting with the Glubbox baby?
Yeah,
It's stupid.
look, it's cute, but I think it's a waste of your finger energy.
Yeah.
because you have to mash 2 buttons really fast.
Yep.
to
Yeah,
beat them.
not a big fan of that. I mean, they're cute. I thought maybe, I guess I didn't remember from childhood here. I thought maybe they would kind of switch it up a little bit depending on what the area was.
Some are harder than others. Like there's different paths.
I didn't get all of them, so I could be wrong.
I did most of them.
Okay.
I think even in Greg's version, the reward was not worthwhile at all.
No.
Right? Because like in our version, if you complete a level with less than full health, it'll stay that way.
Correct.
And this little bonus stage is an opportunity to fill it back up.
Yes.
But yours always fills
In
up.
the Dreamcast version, your health heals at the end of every level, so completing these becomes pointless.
Yeah. I think the only thing you can get is like the gold fist.
Yeah,
or
the power
whatever.
fist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, so I wanted to maybe get into like the story here.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
okay. So very cut and dry in scope compared to what I remember, which is not a bad thing. I think pretty much every level, a couple exceptions, are very like short and sweet, very memorable contrast. I want to get into some of the highlights and lowlights here if you guys want to chip in if I didn't say something. I did think it's funny that this game is called The Great Escape and you escape in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, that was it. And I hope you enjoyed it. But
There's your escape.
So right off the bat, I wanted to mention the level of the Fairy Glade. It's one of the first levels. The first pirate you fight is like a medium health version. It's just to get you acclimated to the combat. And then like the other ones you encounter are low level. So it's like it's such a nice little choice. You know, like just a little bit more thought. And I thought it was really interesting to have this level be one of the few that you can't 100% right off the bat. Remember you were asking me like
but you have to backtrack to it.
There's like one cage I can't get, and if you go back in like the echoing caves,
Yep.
there's a little path. I really like the Menhir Hills little diversion with the you come across Clark and you need him to get through the wall.
Yes.
And he's like sick or something. Or he ate too many pirates.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And he says you have to go get the elixir from the Cave of Bad Dreams, which is like a place you've been close to before. So the way you do this is you run into that scary magician guy in the marshes earlier on, and if you go up to him, then he says, "I'm not letting you in here unless you know the name of this place." And then like when you get there, when you go back, he has that really intimidating voice, and he says, "I can read your mind. I know you know the name of this place."
Yes.
That's right.
And that whole segment, I think, is so fantastic because it's like the game as it starts out, it progresses pretty much like conventionally as you'd expect. You know, you're kind of going along the quest looking for the masks to awaken Polokus, but this is the first moment of like backtracking.
Yeah.
And it's like tonally it's a shift. It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the guy, he's like chasing you and you see it from the perspective of his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
you're
"Oh, this
sliding."
rocks."
He like bites. It's really loud.
I actually wish they did more of this.
Yes.
You only backtrack once or twice the entire game.
Yeah, I think there should have been. I think I like this type of backtracking because it really. It's kind of like when you do it in Dark Souls, like it opens up a whole new area.
Yeah, I think actually one of the pitfalls of the later game is there isn't any of it.
Right.
Like you only really do it once, maybe
Right.
twice.
I would agree with you. I think because it's like this is such a special and unique thing where he hypnotizes you and you wake up in this like nightmare world. And the whole did you guys do the fake out ending here?
Yes.
Where he asks you, do you want the treasure or not?
Yes.
I mean, I don't remember what happens if you say yes.
Very funny.
It's really funny.
What
It's,
happens?
Rayman, like he's like holding the coin. It's very like One Ring kind of
Yeah.
imagery. He's holding the coin and he like flips it and he catches it. And it cuts to Rayman by himself and he's like really, really fat. And he's on this tiny island by himself with the treasure. And it says the end. And it's like, and it cuts and he like kind of like wakes up and shakes himself out of it. Like it's a little like dream, like a fantasy he was having.
Interesting.
But yeah, you get the elixir for Clark, and then you kind of proceed on your merry way there. So I wanted to bring up this level. I was messaging you guys about it at the time. The Sanctuary of Stone and Fire.
I'm about to walk out of the room.
Dude, can we talk about it? So
Yes, please.
this is this is a level that I remember as a kid being a huge pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly because I really wanted to 100% it. And there are so many little missable areas
Mm-hmm.
that I like even this time forgot about. And it's number one, it's a big difficulty spike. And the general, like there's like no other characters even in it.
No.
And it's crazy because this is another moment which feels a little bit, because it's kind of like, yeah, it's a happy, fun times, and you know you get some weird and scary parts, but this is just like Rayman. We're throwing you in the meat grinder here, you know, like it's a tough.
You
part,
guys like
right?
the fire temple? You like plums?
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna echo this. I've said this on many episodes. Why can no game get the fire level right?
Yeah.
It just never happens.
Well,
whatever. Whatever. I'm over it.
I won't say that it's bad. It's just it's tedious.
It's a little unfair at
I think
times,
this
too.
this level is where the jankiness of the game. This is where it starts to hurt. Is
little
right
bit,
in
yeah.
here.
It's like those plums, man. I was having a really bad time.
Having to
controlling those
land on one of
plums.
those is too precise.
Not even the landing, just
No.
like pushing them around the lava.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, I had a bad time.
Well, you
got
got to throw it up on a spike and stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of plum work here.
yeah, Rayman the plumber.
Yeah, but you know, it's that's good. I wanted to. You and I had a very similar experience where we were into that level, the precipice.
That level rules.
It's fucking yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking where it's one of the ones where you're being chased by a pirate ship.
Oh, right. That's the Great Escape part. That's
That's the
That's
great
the Great
escape.
yeah.
But I think it's because it's, you know what it is? You're being chased from the start. So like the pacing of the level is different. I think this is maybe even a little bit of a lost art in games.
Where the
you're-
rhythm of the game, it's very obvious. There's a rhythm to the jumping.
Yeah, well, but like the other games, you know, I mean, the other levels are more exploring
At your own pace,
or at your own
yes.
pace,
It's
or
almost on
smaller.
rails in a way.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, so stuff like I feel like it's most effective when they're not like super close together. Because right after this is the chair level, which is also kind of a contrast level.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
It's a weird one, right? Where you're on the chair and it's like flying around
Yeah,
the jungle and
Very
stuff.
short too.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I like both of them. But it's cool that, you know, the fundamental gameplay hasn't really changed that much, but it's just a little different. In that same vein, I really enjoyed, you guys may not, the Beneath the Sanctuary of Rock and Lava with the you have infinite helicoptering.
Oh, that
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't hate that as much as I thought I would, to be
It's
honest.
short.
Yeah.
It's short. I think it's like a key example of so typically you only have a couple seconds before his helicopter hair, your glide kind of ability runs out. But this is Lee the fairy gives you this ability
To fly, right?
Basically fly indefinitely. And it's great because it's a key example of what's possible when you like temporarily break or alter a game mechanic. Like suddenly all your usual like level design limitations are lifted. Because it's like, oh yeah, you can just, so now we can design it around this. It's a totally different thing.
I just say it's a little weird. That's the only place in the game where you do this. I thought maybe they would bring it elsewhere.
Well,
I don't know if I really
maybe.
wanted them to, but
Well, I think I said this to you off mic, Nick, where I think the downfall of this game is the second half, where they don't introduce new things and they don't add on either. If things
Right.
kind of get more on rails or more flying sequences, sliding sequences, and there isn't like a new thing for you to do or a new add-on.
A little bit.
because it's like with this one, right? You get through the Rayman helicopter flying sequence, you get swatted out of the sky by the boss's like fly swatter
Right.
or whatever.
Yep.
Man's like, oh, I can't fly anymore, and then you never fly with your hair again.
Yeah, it's odd.
It's
Well,
re-
I
yeah.
don't mind that so much because it makes that moment unique. What
That's
I
true.
think would have been ideal is using it in the boss fight.
Or it gets
Yeah.
recalled somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, in
something
that
like
particular
that.
boss fight, yeah, would have been cool.
Exactly. I didn't remember a couple of these last couple levels. Like it was like because my memory of the game at this point is a little fuzzy. Like around this point, but also weird. I think it was supposed to be the other way around. That it's like you have Sanctuary of Water and Ice, right, and then
Yep.
you have Stone and Fire, and then Rock and Lava.
Right.
And I think what it was supposed to, I think it was supposed to be Rock and Stone, and then it was going to be Fire and Lava or something
okay.
like that. And then the last one is Iron Mountains, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Because the sanctuary where you do the plums is fire and stone, but you're in lava.
Yes.
But there's no
Yeah.
lava in lava. It's weird.
Yeah,
I think that was a translation bug there.
Yeah.
But no, I totally forgot about the Clark thing where you go to the tomb.
Oh,
And
that one's cool.
I like that a lot, and that's also where you find the 1,000th Lum.
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
helicopter around this very narrow
Mhm.
wall. And I remember finding it as a kid and thinking like, oh, I've broken something. Like I shouldn't be seeing this. But it doesn't like alter your count at all. It's just added to it.
Yeah.
It's a cool little Easter egg. But the Iron Mountains is like the last like major level before the end. And I totally forgot about the big like giant like dinosaur robot.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I
jumps.
gotta fight a Metal Gear. What's going on?
Yeah,
here?
that's what I
Exactly.
called it.
That was awesome. I liked riding the shell at that point. Something that was a little bit of a swing and a miss for me was when you fly the pirate ship.
Oh,
You
to
guys-
collect the Glubbox babies?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was a little weird.
It felt
Yeah.
a little moddy.
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't quite because it's not like you're shooting cannonballs. You shoot like the laser out of the top of the.
I think this
pirate ship.
level's a little bit half-baked,
Yeah.
half-cooked.
Yeah, I feel like they either ran out of time or there is some cut content here because at the end of this level, one of the Glowbox babies like,
Oh, I
hey, I got the
found
mask.
this in the mines.
Right? The kids yearn for the mines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think in the was it in your version? Is there a boss here?
No.
Okay. It must have been just been the PS2.
Oh, they added a
version.
boss to this part.
Yeah, it's like
Oh.
the same as the other guys, though. You know, like one of
Yeah.
those.
I see.
But no, that was. I mean, I don't know. It's that swing and a miss, whatever.
Yeah.
But let's get into the final level here. Did you guys feel that the last level and final boss are a good test of everything that's come before?
So the final boss is unique and it's fine. I think the final level is so brief. And also a lot of it is on rails. You're either
The slide.
sliding or flying on what are the rocket things called?
The shells.
The shells.
Yeah.
Do you walk around the ship at all?
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
It's very short.
Yeah.
At least the crow's nest is incredibly short.
Yeah, I mean, as far as is it a good final test? I don't believe it is at all
No.
because you don't really use Rayman's powers or
No.
anything you learned. You use the thing for the final boss. You use the thing you learned in the level before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's about it. Is this a good time to mention my really funny time with the final boss and really funny glitch that I had?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so this is a problem with the version of the game that I played. It's a speed up glitch where at random intermittent times, Rayman will start moving at like 1.5 times speed.
Oh yeah. You were telling me about this.
So this, if you look up
It's a well-known problem.
It's a well-known problem of like machines, like computers of when mine was made. There is a way to fix it, but way over my head.
Sure.
So I just dealt with it. It really wasn't a problem playing the main game. It didn't affect me really at all until this part.
Yeah.
It happened a lot during the final boss, especially when riding the shell.
Yeah.
So now if you can imagine imprecise controls when trying to fly the little shell in very tight corridors where you have like just a little brief second to make a turn, crank that up to 1.5 times speed randomly.
It's so hard.
It makes it very difficult.
I had enough problems like just on
Yes.
my own, like without any issues.
Right.
It's very like my opinion of this end game is that I feel very like positively about the atmosphere and like the feel going into it.
Yeah.
But in terms of as a culmination of what has been happening, not as
What they actually ask you to do, not really.
Right. And it's kind of funny. We were talking about it. So you awaken Polocus with the masks.
Yep.
And his like just off screen, it's like you find out that he killed all the pirates.
That's right.
And he's just like this hippie with a top hat that you found in the middle of nowhere. He's like, yeah, they're all dead, but I can't go in the air, so you have to.
gotta
Do you know
take
what's
care of that.
interesting? Like in my version specifically, there's in the Dreamcast version, there's an additional cinematic of Rayman breaking everyone out of prison, all the slaves.
Yes,
That's
right.
awesome.
Yeah, and that's not in the
I feel
original
like that's
ones.
what I was missing in this
Yeah.
part. So that's cool. That's the real Great Escape.
Yeah.
So this final boss could just really just compare to what has been asked of you at this point. Pretty tough. I feel like there's just like not a lot of checkpoints.
No.
When you because he has like the homing missiles and
Yes.
shit. And no, I mean I did enjoy it. I just don't think it's a good like culmination, right? Like
No.
It's like my issue with all the bosses in this game. Like it's fine, but I don't really feel strongly about them
Yeah.
at all.
I
like Razorbeard a lot, but I don't really
think
like
there's-
the boss fight.
Like I think there's too much flying. Like it's
Yeah.
so long. There's
it takes a long time. I like the actual thing itself, the Grolgoth.
The Grolgoth is pretty cool.
It's
we
like
to fight it
a
more.
giant robot that he orders from that guy from the soda game.
Yes.
What is that game
Tonic
called?
Trouble?
Tonic Trouble?
Yes.
He's apparently a guy from that. It's like Razorbeard gets a special guest, and it's like a fucking Marvel cameo. Like we're supposed to know who it is from this obscure soda game. But he purchases it to destroy Rayman. It does not pay off.
No.
Rayman obviously triumphs fear. Razorbeard gets away during the credits. So I think the door is open for Rayman 2 too.
Ooh.
I think I did want to mention he was originally named Razorface, which is really, really metal. And it is revealed in the... Did you guys play the racing game at all?
No.
No, me neither.
It is revealed that he has a wife.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
Her name is Razor Wife, or alternatively, in a different version of the game, Mrs. Beard.
That's funny. I guess as Murphy says, see you in Rayman 4.
Rayman 4.
Yeah.
So shall we get into final thoughts here about
Yeah.
Rayman 2?
I'll start if you
Yeah,
don't mind.
go ahead.
I think for me, Rayman, I've said it before, Rayman 2 is one of the cool man games. Like
Yeah.
if you're into games and you like platformers and if you're that kind of person, you like this game. And I feel like this game for me, I don't want to sound like too matter of fact, but this game is very much one of the late 90s 3D platformers of that era. DK64, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Rayman 2. But this is almost like the cool, like hip cousin that not everyone knows.
Right,
Not everyone has
right.
played.
Yes.
And I really remember it for that. I think for me, the Rayman speech is very iconic, like
Yeah.
what you call it, Raymanish.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
very iconic. Maybe this is wrong, but I love when Rayman kind of slaps his fist and you shoot the little ping pong thing. Maybe it's
Yeah.
nostalgia, but I like it. And I like all the characters. I think for me, what stops this game from being like the shit,
Perfect.
or like what stops this game from being like the top tier of platformers is kind of the second half where there's too much sliding, too much flying, too much on rails playing.
It could be a little more like on the ground.
And I wish they gave you an additional twist or an additional thing happens rather than it kind of reduces rather than add. So I feel like you kind of get to the crow's nest and it's over.
Yeah.
And I feel like they could have done more in that final section to make it feel like we're at the end. But that's how I feel about
build
it.
up to it a little bit stronger.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, Nick, do you want to go before Riley takes it?
Sure, this is a hard one for me. I have a lot of nostalgia for this game, and it did feel nice. When we played it originally, we could not beat the final boss as kids.
Yes.
But, finally beating the final boss, even with my additional difficulty spikes that I encountered, it felt nice to finally beat him. This is going to sound sacrilegious. I did not enjoy my time back in Rayman 2 as much as you guys did.
Oh, sure.
This game was definitely a lot better for me as a kid than it was now.
Okay.
There are a lot of parts in this game that really agitated me.
Sure.
From the imprecise controls to my sensitivity issues, to a lot of just like gameplay quirks that just didn't really click with me.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know. I love the aesthetic of the game. I love the characters. The pirates are awesome. I like the colors and the sound. I don't know. I've said this about a couple of games now. I liked everything about this game except playing it.
Yeah.
So I wish my return to Rayman 2 felt as good as it did when I was a kid, but it just didn't.
Yeah, sure.
It didn't quite hit it for me this time.
Yeah.
I think I'm very biased when it comes to this game, so it's hard to judge it fairly. I think in general, others may disagree. I think it aged quite well, and that I do consider it to be my favorite 3D platformer of that era.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's something still very hard to replicate about it, and I think if you had a trustworthy team, you could probably remaster or remake it.
Well, I think there's a mysticism to Rayman 2 that the
Yes.
other ones don't have and other platformers don't have either.
No, it's very unique. I think it's better than the sum of its parts. It's we shall never see its like again. So, with that being said, shall we move on to Rayman 3?
Do we have to?
Do we have to?
Fine, let's do it.
So, I
We
mean, before I let you take it, I'm going to make two statements. This game is very mediocre, and compared to the second one, like I am like debating like calling it a bad game, but I'm gonna let you start and let's. There's a lot of questionable stuff in this.
Save it for the end.
Yeah, right. Let's go.
So, like its predecessor, this game was developed by UB Pictures and published by Ubisoft. It was initially released in 2003 for GameCube, Xbox, and PS2. Gradually made its way onto PC, OS X, PS3, and Xbox 360. A completely different 2D version was released for mobile phones, GBA, and the N-Gage.
Wait, this game was on the N-Gage?
It was on the N-Gage.
Yeah.
It was a different version.
That's how you know
which we
it's
won't
bad.
be talking about.
Boy.
It was on the N-Gage. So I wanted to bring up a quote I found by Michel himself, who was the director of Rayman 2. I didn't work on Rayman 3, but it was a bit too concrete for my tastes. It was interesting because that team wanted to work in a more humorous dimension. So let me ask you guys, does this quote make any sense, or was he just being tactful?
Oh, he's being nice. Like
I think so too.
well, he was working on Beyond Good and Evil at the same time.
Yeah.
is that why he didn't work on this
That's
game?
why he didn't
Which
work
is a
on
much
this.
better game.
I mean, there's some distasteful stuff in this game that we'll talk about.
Yeah, but I mean, in
he's
terms
being
of-
nice.
No, but I don't really understand what he meant by concrete. Like, it doesn't feel concrete to me at all.
I think, well, it doesn't have the mysticism or like magical flair of the second one. It's just stupid,
Yeah.
right?
Is that really all he's talking about? I think you're right.
Is that
on
what he
money there.
means?
I think so.
Like, but I took it to mean like more grounded, which I wouldn't even.
no,
It
I wouldn't
doesn't
say
make
it's
that much
grounded.
sense.
No,
you know,
I mean,
like,
I think he was asked an interview question. He's like,
he gave an interview answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was being very nice. So he didn't work on this game at all?
No.
Okay. got it.
So the premise of this game is established solely in the like attract video, like when you're waiting to hit the start button.
Yep.
Oh, is that what those are called? Attract videos?
I've heard them called that
Oh,
way.
I've never heard that
I
before.
could be wrong, but
Okay.
so you don't really get anything like the somewhat like disconsolate exposition dump in the beginning of Rayman 2. You were saying that's such a powerful kind of tone setter, right? And so we have Andre, who is a black lum. He is racing through the jungle, and he converts hundreds, if not thousands, of red lums into black lums like himself. And they're just like little dirty flies that
Yeah.
are like
Yep.
flying around and stuff. So they rapidly spread through Rayman's world, and they appear to construct these like outer bodies for themselves out of like the wool or the fur of like the native creatures, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Something
what
like that.
What you were getting from this? So
Yeah.
this is the main like antagonist force here in this game called the Hoodlums. I think let me share my opinion. I think there's a version of this game that's awesome. This is not it.
No.
I like the idea of the Hoodlums just fine. It's just that the introduction is so abrupt compared to the previous game. It feels much harder to connect with it or take it seriously. With respect to taking things seriously, the tone here of this particular game, I think we discussed it a little bit off mic. We called it deranged.
Yeah.
It's very deranged. It's really bizarre to the point of like being off-putting. Like
Yes.
it's like this big joke that it's like barely letting you in on.
Yes.
Like as a kid, I didn't understand half of the fucking jokes that were being made.
Oh, did you
No.
play this game as a kid?
I did.
Okay, because I think, Greg, for you and I, this is our first time playing this game.
I played it
okay.
as a kid and I didn't finish it. I got it like halfway through.
Mhm.
I think the game is like making fun of itself for moment one. It's very like there's a lot of weird like references to other games.
a lot of fourth wall breaking stuff.
Fourth wall breaking. It's very like a little bit of, you know, self-deprecating humor is okay in a mixed setting, but if it's like the one guy who's like always like, yeah, I'm such a piece of shit, you know, like
Yeah, that's what like Murphy talks like in this
Yeah,
game.
what did they do to Murphy, man? Like, why do they do my guy like that?
They also spell it differently, which is
Yeah,
really weird.
I don't get that. Yeah.
So are there any like weird meta jokes in this game that stood out
Yes.
to you?
What's the Zelda one? Remember, like there's a prince.
There's
what
like
is
a
it?
fairy, and Andre is like, get out of here, Zelda needs you.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like very inelegant.
And we should say like it's real voice acting this time too.
Yes.
It's not Rayman language,
It
so I also
is.
don't like that.
It is. So there's all real voice acting. The humor in this game is very, we'll say, hit or miss.
A lot more misses than hits. But
I think some lines are pretty funny. There is a really good one where, for some reason, Andre is really into plum juice.
yes.
Yeah.
And he says, "Get me some plum juice, or I'll start nibbling his arteries."
Yes. Remember that one? Yeah.
He's in Glowbox's stomach the whole game.
A lot of plot points in this series revolve on Glowbox eating stuff.
Yeah,
Very
well,
interesting.
I mean, he's that kind of guy.
Not a bad thing, in my
Well,
opinion.
there's a lot of really weird quote unquote jokes about. Do you remember when you open cages, all of
Yes.
those guys have little one-liners? Oh, I gotta go turn my oven off. Right?
Yeah.
I gotta go bring the kids to
I-
practice.
I
I'm like,
think-
what is going on?
I think that's cute.
I liked one of them especially. One of them says, "I gotta go do my taxes." Because we played this game during tax season.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, I should probably go do that.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Well, they're the guy we didn't even mention the guys, the teensies from the
Yes.
previous game, and you rescue them. But we should warn the audience, if you're curious about these, there is a lot of unnecessary lewdness and cringe-inducing racist humor.
Yep.
I feel like they were really targeting the edgy teenage boy of 2003. With
Yes.
this, what just all they won't let you say this on
Yeah.
one of those. So I would like to share with you guys. I haven't mentioned this. I'd like to share an anecdote about my first experience of this game. I had a subscription to Nintendo Power when I was a kid.
Yep.
There was an ad for Rayman 3. I'm into Rayman. I'm looking and I see, there's a new Rayman coming out, and I don't know what it was, but I was I was looking at it, and I just suddenly flipped to another page because it was something very embarrassing.
Oh.
And I was in the car with my mom and my aunt, and my aunt is like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, it's just a game magazine," and she's like, "Can I see it?"
Uh-oh.
I'm like, yeah. So I hand it over to her, and she starts flipping through it, and she comes upon the Rayman ad.
Okay.
And she reads it aloud. Rayman standing at a urinal, and he's peeing into the urinal, and he's smiling at the camera behind him. And the other guys next to him are looking down at Rayman's dick. And the caption is, "No arms, no legs, huge features."
Oh,
I hate
my
that.
God. Wait, actually, can I ask a question? So, is Rayman's nether region designed the same as his arms and legs, or
That's really funny.
I don't know. Is that how that works?
Honestly,
we
that-
never see it.
Well, honestly, that's funnier than whatever they tried
I'm
to do.
sorry for bringing that.
Wait, hold on, wait.
It's a good idea.
Riley, look at me right in the face.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that they did our man like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, because it's really embarrassing because Rayman 2 is one of those games where I wouldn't be embarrassed if somebody walked in.
It's
and
very
seen me.
classy.
Right.
Very classy, very unique. But it's kind of listen, that's not what he's really like. You please,
Yeah.
I felt so fucking embarrassed when she
Yes.
stopped on that
Yeah.
ad
I think
and
we've
read it
stumbled
aloud.
upon Greg Mantra number 5, I think.
Don't want to be embarrassed.
You don't want to be embarrassed.
It's awful, but it's such a clear indication that they were targeting a different audience with this
Can
one,
you believe what is it pronounced? Is it Michelle Ansel? Is that how you pronounce his
Yeah,
name?
yeah.
Can you believe what he was thinking if he saw that? Oh my god!
Look how they massacred my boy.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay, so we mentioned that there's voice acting. What do we think about the voice acting in this
Bad.
game?
This is why I said the Rayman language holds up well, because bad voice acting is
Yeah,
His voice
well-
acting in this game is largely not good. I thought Rayman's voice was largely fine. To
It was
be honest.
fine.
He doesn't
But,
talk much.
No, but Glowbox's voice I thought was terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I didn't hate it.
Well-
I hated some other actors. I'll
Well,
say
I
that.
think also because there is some really, really in poor taste, bad racist humor in this game, and it's
Yes.
also voice acted out loud.
Yeah.
and it makes it
Yes.
feel so much worse.
Yeah.
Yes, completely. It is so the idea of voice acting in Rayman is definitely offensive to me as a concept, but the execution of Rayman and Glowbox, I didn't think it was as bad as it could have been. We have Johnny Leguizamo voices Glowbox. and
Wait,
he's-
seriously?
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. I
So-
didn't like the performance, but I'm sorry.
It's I don't know. I definitely like Lobbox and Rayman 2 better, but he, as like kind of like a dim-witted like sidekick, I think he did okay. But the problem is, I think it's definitely subtractive, where it takes you out of the experience.
Yes.
They're using all these real world references, all this lewd humor. It's just like it feels like a joke. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like they really gave a shit. And I think some of the performances are even like half-assed. You know what I mean? I would say that the art direction and the music at least feels tonally consistent with like the prior entries. Some of the later tracks I think are like actual bangers.
I would agree.
Like in the later levels, I think they're really good. Tangentially related to the positives, I'm coming out as a big Hoodlum supporter on this podcast.
Okay.
Big Hoodlum guy.
Big Hoodlum guy. I love the design. I think it's very unique, very like, you see the silhouette, you know what it is. I respect that there are different classes. There's a lot of different, kind of strategies in combat that you need to
enemy variety.
Adopt. A lot of enemy variety, especially compared to the previous game. Just a tiny bit more thought put into, okay, he needs to like, they do like the curved fist, stuff like that. I think the other changes to gameplay are kind of a mixed bag. But in terms of overall performance, it's sometimes, I'm not sure if you guys agree with this. It kind of feels like a junky, like Rayman 2 mod.
That's a pretty good way to put it. I mean, aside from like the improvements they made to combat, I'm not sure what other improvements there are.
I mean, like I don't know if this is me arguing with you, but I don't like any of the levels either. It feels very milquetoast, very
like the level
bland.
design?
The level design is very not memorable.
Very linear.
I feel like I was coasting playing through this game.
I was too.
like,
I mean, so I think a lot of the art direction was cool. I feel like the design, like you say, is just very like flat.
Maybe I'm like going nuts here. Was there no gliding, no flying, no sliding, and no water levels? Am I crazy?
There's definitely no water levels.
There isn't a lot of variation to walking around.
You can use the helicopter, but it's not like...
I'm saying like, on the rocket things. There's like not much of that.
Only that power up.
Yeah.
You can swim, I'm pretty sure, right?
Is there swimming?
There aren't any major swimming levels.
There's no like water levels.
Yeah. There isn't. Maybe I'm now that we're talking this out, maybe I'm like discovering why I found it so milquetoast.
Because there's not enough of that variation.
No, there isn't a lot.
So Rayman can throw his fist again, but for me, it feels like the wind-up takes way too long.
It's too long.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something else, and I was going to be like, yes, someone else noticed.
What?
Okay, so I don't know what it is. For some reason, in Rayman 3, like the wind-up and throwing animation, I feel is so lackluster compared to Rayman 2. The way Rayman and Rayman 3 throws the fist, it reminds me of someone who's never thrown a baseball, throws a baseball, but he never learns how to do it.
Yes.
But I don't know, but in Rayman 2, it feels like he does it with so much more authority.
Like dexterity.
Yeah, I don't get
he's
it.
like a little flick of the wrist.
Yeah, the strafing sideways throws, I think the animation's good, but for you just standing there and throwing, it looks like, I know this is not a video podcast, but he's just sitting there flicking his wrist going, yeah, okay, here you go.
Yeah, it's very blasé.
Yeah.
It's, I think, with, a lot of this stuff too, you have to fully wind it up to break the piggy banks. And
that's annoying,
the doors, when you get the metal fist, and even some of the later enemies, you need to be fully wound up.
Yep.
And what I wanted to mention was this is supported by, there is evidence of an abandoned upgrade that would have reduced the charge time.
I wish we got that.
So
would have been nice.
It would have been like, okay, you don't put that in the game. Shorten the time it takes to wind it up.
Yeah, because I thought some man like sitting there and winding up the fist for some of those puzzles. Just okay, can we get this over with, please?
Tedious.
Yeah, very tedious.
It slows it down a little too much. There are a couple other planned upgrades that would have been kind of like the silver lums in the previous game, which included actually being able to strafe, like to fully like.
Oh, really? That was a power up or
yes.
planned power? Oh my god!
So wouldn't that be nice if the game functioned as the previous one did?
That would have been cool.
Would have been great. And as well as increased range for the fist and shooting both of your fists at once.
Oh, that would have been kind of cool.
So a couple other ideas that I guess they just couldn't really lock on. So power-ups in this game are handled via cans of detergent, like magic detergent, that give Rayman unique abilities for a limited time. So I'm going to ask you guys, which one did you like the most and which one did you like the least?
Do you want me to go first?
I have no idea. I did not love this system very much in general.
Yeah.
Nick, go ahead.
I kind of like, okay, so for just a general moment-to-moment gameplay, I like the knuckles, like the spiked knuckles, because you could break open the piggy banks without winding up using those. But and they also did more damage, which is nice. But I think as far as like the levels and the gameplay goes, I liked the very first one you got, though, the wind one.
Yeah,
where you can knock down platforms. It also makes enemies
like
smaller
and smaller.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of cool. But that's probably my favorite. My least favorite was probably the one half of the chains that you use to grapple across the rings. I feel like grappling across the rings is a core Rayman power-up that he just has innately.
Yeah.
And so it feels like he has kind of lost it between games. But I did like
looks
that.
Cool.
It does. But I did like the part of it where you could electrocute enemies.
Dude, I hated the guiding the rocket or whatever.
Oh,
my
At
god.
least you didn't take damage.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because I feel like just that kind of control, like they do it in MGS 1 and 2 a couple times. It's so dated.
Yeah,
you know what really bugged me? You can change it, but in Rayman 2, the flying controls are the inverted controls.
Yes,
but in Rayman 3, it's opposite.
Oh, jeez.
It took me a long. I ended up switching it because I just could not get used to it.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I don't know why they made that decision, but whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, I was a fan of generally the chains. That was I'm a big chain guy. But you know what really bothered me? So I think it's actually kind of cool that so you only get these for a limited time. I think it's kind of cool that the timing is relative to like their utility. So the more useful ones are like a shorter time. I think it's way too fucking short with the super helicopter one.
They are
they almost
really
like
short.
they want you to fly quickly and be done.
Yeah, like it's just you can fly vertically rather
I almost feel like they were afraid of the game breaking.
Yeah.
Where like you can only do this for 2 seconds, bye.
I did like some of the puzzles though, where you could like fly up. Oh, there's another one. Now you can use this to fly over to another one. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I just you know what
mechanically sound.
I think like what this system is fine. It works. It's just not my favorite because you have no sense of progression in the game.
Right.
Like you don't like gain these over time, and you're able to use them whenever you want.
You have access to them. Like they show up. All of them show up very early.
Yes.
So it doesn't really, you're right.
I remember I got the achievement for getting all of the, I'm calling them tonics, getting all the detergent like very early on. I'm like, wait a minute, really?
Yeah,
that was all the power-ups? Oh, that's weird. Okay.
You don't have a sense of progression in this game.
No, and I also feel like it really, every time you hit them, it makes that really annoying like chime sound.
Yes.
And it's like, if it's in a more intense level or like the soundtrack is really popping off, it really fucks it up.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't want to hear that right now, I don't know. But later in the game, I wanted to mention, I didn't know about this in Rayman 1, the Grimace.
Yes.
You get that power later, and it turns the black lums back into red ones. It's just one of those things where it's like the game is already so stupid, and it's like you're making it feel even dumber. You know?
This game feels too stupid, and it's really stupid on purpose, and all of it offended me.
It's just like it's flipping you the bird all the time, you know?
Like, I appreciate the throwback to the Grimace.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, okay, I don't know if it was just me having a problem with how it worked, but sometimes the timing works for me and sometimes I didn't.
I felt the same way.
Like I would grimace at a black lemon, it would do nothing. And then another time I do it and it would work.
You have to be like a certain range.
Doesn't this game feel like the kind of thing, hey, I'm funny, right? You don't think I'm funny? No, I'm funny.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Dude,
just
come
wait.
on. Yeah, just wait. I'm really funny.
So I have an important question to ask. What did you guys think of the Subway Surfers interludes?
Oh, it's fucking awful. I hated every single one.
I called that like the hyper light drifter parts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like I was on mushrooms playing that.
Very.
Dude.
It's I think that was your contrast. That's what we have for
Oh,
contrast.
dude, I could not stand those. I called them extended loading screens.
Yes.
They're like
Yeah.
very bright loading screens.
That's a good way to put it.
I shouldn't use the word hate. I very much disliked these.
Why were they so long?
They're so long.
They're really long. They happen between, it's like the warp
Yeah.
situation between most levels. And I don't know if they thought it would
Listen,
be
I'm making a
fun.
statement. No one likes the gummy ship. No one likes this. Like, we don't like these extended loading screen things.
No.
We don't like them.
I don't know. It's weird because if it happened once, it wouldn't be that bad, but it happens so
It's like
often.
4 times.
And there's another part like that. I actually had it typed out to you guys, but I never sent the message.
Oh.
It just sounds so fucking ridiculous the way I describe it. But there's a segment that happens a couple times where it's like one of Rayman's shoes goes rogue.
Yeah.
And you have to shrink down and use his other shoe as like a bumper car.
Yeah, there are weird bumper car segments with your shoes.
Okay,
And it's mandatory.
Yes.
Ask a weird question. Okay, it's Rayman's shoe, but Rayman has detached limbs. Is it like his foot itself?
It's really weird.
I don't know. That like fucked me up. I'm like, is it his foot? Is it his shoe?
Why didn't they just give you a power where you're made small to go underneath?
yeah.
It's also, you have to be really precise to hit it.
Yeah.
And last but not least, it's kind of hand in hand with that, is there is also a really perfunctory scoring system in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And it involves like collecting, instead of lums, it's like gems. And like you rack up like combos and Greg is very slowly thumbs down in the studio to unlock bonus stages, which I didn't really mess around with much this time. All the mechanics here are really just kind of like seem like fuck it, let's see what happens.
Nick and I discussed this a little bit off mic. Like I very much dislike the scoring system.
Yeah,
it makes me feel like I'm playing a video game. It feels arcadey. I don't like that. Well, that's choice.
This whole thing. They're never gonna let you forget that this is a video game.
No,
I mean, be ashamed of it.
I disliked that whole tone. I did not like the gem system. I thought in Rayman 2 it's very tasteful, where you need to save the lums, so the only thing you can collect are the lums, and that's your score. Like, you know what, essentially.
Yes.
But with this, it's like, there's like, what'd you call it, a perfunctory scoring system? It's a good word for it.
It's completely like, oh great, I unlocked some shitty bonus levels.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
Like, I wasn't a huge fan of scoring system in general, but I don't think we should use the word arcadey as a bad thing. Because some games are built to be arcade games, right?
But
so I don't think it works for Rayman, but I don't want to use the word arcadey to also be synonymous with bad.
Yeah, sure, that's okay.
No, Greg uses it a lot more pejoratively than I do.
Yeah, that's true.
So I agree that it has its place,
right?
But in terms of, I don't think it was additive to the Rayman 2 experience, which this is really trying to recreate, I think. So I would like to get into a little story highlight, low light situation here.
It's all low, dude.
No, well, it's not all low. I really enjoyed the sequence in the big game hunter's house.
Yeah,
in the bog. He has this really, it's kind of a boss fight where it feels a little bit like Mikolash in Bloodborne, where you have to chase him through the house, and you have a little bit of like the end from NGS3 where he's like a sniper and you have to hide from him.
Well, is this, I don't know if we've ever brought this up on the show, is this an example of second person gaming? Where you look at your character from the perspective of the monster.
Else.
Yeah.
So it's the you perspective?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, I really like this part. I think the part after it where it goes from like
that part sucks.
The end or the sniper thing to like the Miley Cyrus wrecking ball part.
Wrecking ball, yeah.
I didn't really enjoy that part of it, but the first part was cool.
That. Yeah, the first part's awesome. You save those little creatures. They reward you with like fake red lums, those little red orbs.
Yes.
But the whole wrecking ball thing, I feel like I've seen it before, like a couple times. And it was just like really like, oh, you had something. You had me for a second and then you lost me.
But he also like, it's weird because that boss, I think in general, actually the boss design in this game, I think is actually pretty good.
Yes.
But this particular phase I thought was weird because he has one arm hanging on the wrecking ball and one arm on his gun. And I don't believe he uses the gun in this form.
No.
I thought that was very odd.
That's probably
too.
a cut content thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's I don't want to it's not like tough, but it's annoying. And I think if he was shooting at you, it would be more annoying.
That's true too. Yeah.
The only like problem I have with it is that this character and the situation is not built up to at all.
No.
It's very like, it would have been really cool if that guy shows up at the beginning of the level and like maybe he takes a shot at you or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's like you have to like work your way to his house. It feels very random.
It's definitely very random. I mean, it was probably my favorite like 5-minute sequence in the game.
Yes.
I think we'd all agree with that.
That's the zenith there.
Yeah.
The desert of the Kanaran is I think a great idea because it is kind of breaking up the gameplay as you know it a little bit, where it's like you can't get past these guys.
Yep.
These big huge guys. But I think this level's a huge pain in the ass.
Yes.
It's another thing where it feels like they could have built up to this a little better. Like I don't know, because the Rayman 2, you at least have the idea of I need to go to the sanctuaries and stuff like that. And this is very, there's another doctor in the desert. It's like, I don't know, like if this had a little bit of a foreboding menace to it, like, oh, that's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
You know, like it kind of build some suspense, I think it would have landed a little better.
Well, I mean, we should make this clear. Essentially, the plot of the game is there's a black Lumen Glubbox in his stomach.
I totally forgot to even talk about
Wait,
that.
and you're trying to find a doctor to get it out of him.
Right.
And you keep going to these other worlds because these doctors can't get it out of him alone, and they need other doctors.
Yes.
Which is like it makes enough sense to say that out loud, but how it's displayed to you, I have no idea what's going on through most of the game.
Didn't I say that? I was like, guys, I don't know what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, like, those doctors are, like, extraordinarily offensive. Those might be the most racist parts of the game.
Especially one. But
Especially one in particular. When you guys played this before I did, and you guys were like, hey, there's, like, some light or even some major racism here. And I was playing it, and I'm just like, okay, I haven't seen it yet. Then I get to those guys, I'm like, oh, okay,
it's this.
There it is.
And the bothersome thing is it's not the only example.
No, there's
in the
a
game.
lot. Yeah.
It's really annoying, and it's the whole. Here's the thing. There's a version of this game that works that doesn't have racism in it, but I like the idea of Rayman and Glowbox, because I forgot that Glowbox is like he shows up a couple times in Rayman 2, a couple of key points, but he's not like with you the whole time.
No.
He's with you the whole time in this one. I don't mind that. I like the two of them together, and I like this weird situation where the villain is in his stomach and he's like powerless. It's kind of a funny irony.
Yes.
And it's like there's I don't know. It's a good premise that they just don't. It's just a spaghetti. It's like nothing.
It's a complete mess.
It's a total disaster.
I do miss Glubbox's rain dance, though. I kind of wish they had that in this game.
I
Don't
totally
you
forgot
almost
about that.
wish like the villain went into Glubbox later, where like it's not immediate? You know what I mean? Where it just kind of feels like they kind of shoehorned it in the first 5 seconds.
Well, they really should have had this opening of the game where it's establishing the villains better and how they're taking over the world. It all feels very like in the background.
Yes.
You know, like you're being told rather than shown that they're making the world worse. But I don't know. You were mentioning the boss fights in this game. I thought the boss fight with the lead Kanaran reflux is great. I liked enjoying you have to learn how to avoid his moves and stuff. That was cool.
Okay, can I say something weird about Reflux?
Yeah.
I don't really understand why Reflux is what he is. Okay, all the Kanaran are invincible.
Yeah.
Except the strongest one who isn't.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. Does that how does that work?
I don't know. Like, because when they first introduce him, they're like, he's like the champion, right?
But he's beatable.
But he's beatable, and none of the other ones are.
So, like, if you want to pit me in an arena battle against something you think, oh, yeah, this guy's going to kill you, put me against someone who cannot be killed.
Well, yeah.
I don't understand.
And it's a very kind of comic booky thing where you beat him, and that's why he teams up with Andre, who they get out of his stomach, and they don't catch him. And so that's, I guess, what the back half is that they're kind of teaming up, doing their thing. What I wanted to mention here is I enjoyed the change of pace and gameplay in the shortcut level, which I think there's like a mirror sequence where you have to, like, the platforms are invisible, but you have to look in the mirror to see them.
Yes, okay.
I thought that was really, really interesting, but it feels very gamey in execution.
Yes.
Where it's like you have to collect a bunch of crowns to make progress. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's also too long.
Yeah, it's very long.
Yeah.
It's called the longest shortcut, but
Is it actually what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, but still.
So a point that led into another point I forgot to make. There's a statue of Lee the Fairy in here, and I wanted to mention earlier, I didn't tell you guys, you were asking about Sam the Snake. He's a trophy in the fucking Hunter's Lodge.
Wow.
No!
Yeah.
No, so the hunter killed Sam?
I think that's the implication.
Fuck this game.
Dude,
It's sad.
I'm glad
right?
he's dead. Not Sam. I'm glad the hunter's dead.
Yeah, fuck that
He's
guy.
not dead.
The hunter?
Right?
Did he not die?
That weird
he-
witch like forcibly kidnaps.
Yeah. You know what? That might be a fate worse than death. So we'll let him do his thing.
Yeah, I don't know but that's a sad.
They
twist.
wasted a Sam death on this racist game. Do
He
you
dies
believe
off
that?
screen.
brutal.
He dives off screen in this dog shit game.
It's awful.
It's unfortunate.
That's awful.
I would say that I think the Hoodlum headquarters is probably the best level.
Yeah.
I like that there's a lot of conventional Rayman 2 kind of platforming here. There was only one very dumb part here where they suggest that Glowbox was going to have some infidelity with his wife.
Yeah. Why they gotta do Uglet like that?
Because that's like if you weren't paying attention and to Rayman 2 and you like it's like, how did you not know Glowbox has a wife? Because he's like, there's some like sexy voice on like the PA.
Yeah.
And he thinks there's like they paint like a pink Glowbox on a sign. It's so fucking dumb. I would say, okay, I think this game tests the gameplay better at the end than Rayman 2. Like the tower at the end, like it's kind of testing you on all the detergents and stuff like that. But I would say, like its predecessor, but worse, it becomes very arcadey. Well, I'm putting in air quotes with like a lot of those like turret sections and the flying car and stuff. I kept failing one. I'm like, am I really like, is this what's holding me back? Playing a fucking Rayman game? And there's a lot of unforgiving checkpoints should you make the slightest mistake.
You know what I noticed too? In that final part for the unforgiving checkpoints, this game is pretty easy. It's definitely not as difficult as Rayman 2, especially not Rayman 1.
No.
But the weird part is, if you fall on a hazard, you have like 3 bounces, then you're dead, no matter how much health you have left.
I didn't realize that at first.
That was actually my first game over, which was really funny. I was in the middle of texting you guys, oh yeah, this game's kind of weird, and then I got killed by the sand in the desert. But oh, I guess that's a game over.
Oh,
okay.
Oops.
It's really dumb. I didn't, because it's not made clear to you.
No.
I think that the final boss with Reflux starts out okay. It feels kind of like Ganondorf-y in the setup. I think on paper at least, it makes more sense to have this guy be a boss than like Andre.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm thinking of like Arkham Asylum, where the Joker is the final boss. He gets gigantic, and it's like, this is stupid because he's not a physical guy. So I think it's definitely the right move, but I think this boss fight goes on for fucking ever.
Dude,
It goes so
glad,
long.
So glad you guys agree. Because like, I actually kind of like the whole, it's a little cliche, but I do like the whole use all your powers that you learned from the game to beat the final enemy.
Climbing the tower, getting up to that point, you know.
I also thought that maybe they could have combined phases 2 and 3. Where like you get through phase 1, right? You got to do the electrocution to open up the barrier. Then you use the spiked fist. I thought that was cool. And then he becomes big boy and does all that, whatever.
Right.
I thought maybe for like the final hits on that form, instead of you depleting a health bar, you do it a couple of times or whatever you have to do in that phase.
Right.
And then he turns into that phase 3.
Yeah.
And you go through it instead of them making it a whole other phase. I don't know. Just gonna cut it down a little.
Do you know what's funny about this boss? I don't even know if you guys will understand these references, but they actually referenced, how do I put this? They have other boss battles in their company that play like it. But you guys didn't play not yet. You didn't play Prince of Persia 2 Thrones.
No.
Or you haven't yet. This final boss is actually really similar to that one. And so they actually repurposed this boss later.
That's
so
weird.
Yep.
Okay.
It's really weird.
I think so. I experienced also a weird glitch where all the platforms during the fight disappeared.
Dude, me too.
Me too.
Okay. All
Is
right.
it a glitch or is it intentional? Because Rayman kept grabbing invisible platforms for me.
I think it's a glitch.
Okay.
Because it was preventing me from reaching all the like helicopters and stuff. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then I went back down and I came back up and they were all there. So I think it was a glitch.
Okay.
So, and the whole, I thought this was a cool idea that I just didn't get at first, like the army like sacrificing itself to give him power, like all the hoodlums running at him. It's an interesting like mechanic, like it heals him, but it was unclear to me, like, is this going to go on forever? Am I doing something wrong?
Right.
Dude, this was so bad. Like, why was this so long?
It's so long.
You had to kill 2 barriers. You had to, then he goes into the form where you can actually hurt him. Then you got to do the thing where the army is healing him. And by the way, your ship functions differently than it did in the level before. So you have to relearn an entirely new thing. It's not difficult. It's just tedious.
It's really annoying.
And it's not really clear how long it's going to go on. And, and the answer is forever.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about how angry the end of this game makes me. Whereas so far I've been kind of like here and there on it. I think appropriately the game ends in the dumbest way possible. It to me makes the entire project feel like it made it out of the door like barely intact. This whole thing with it's incredibly abrupt. Like Reflux dies, right? He's destroyed, and it immediately goes to like the night afterwards, and it's like some stupid conversation with Rayman and Glowbox. And it's like he misses Glowbox misses Andre.
Yep.
And he wants to turn him back into it. And it's like, well, a red lum needs to be scared to turn into a black lum. And you find out that I don't know if this means this is going to happen again or it's just explaining to you what happened. But Rayman's hands make like the shadow puppets on the walls and they scare the lum into becoming Andre. And that's how it ends. And I'm like, dude, fuck you.
Yeah, to me, I hated it, but to me, I felt this made this is how the game gets away with being an arcadey infinite loop game.
Yeah,
because this is how it starts, and you go through the game again.
Okay.
That because they want to encourage you to play through the game more times to get a better score.
No.
So that I think is
You can't
the
fool
reason
me,
for
game.
it.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't like it. I thought it was not good. I don't like saying I hated it.
I totally
but
see your point though now. Yeah.
I think it was meant to be an infinite loop.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final thoughts on Rayman 3. I think there are some great ideas here, but it is incredibly rushed. A whole thing feels very rushed and borderline unfinished, and also feels like it suffered from poor high-level decision making or perhaps some misplaced priorities.
This game leaves a bad taste in my mouth because I just think it's distasteful.
Yeah.
Like none of the almost none, none of the humor lands for me. Obviously, there's a lot of bad like racist humor in this game. Voice acting doesn't land for me. There's too much like fourth wall breaking, and because the game is voice acted, it makes it worse. And there are very few levels that are memorable to me. The sniper house is cool.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to find good things to say about it. Like I said in the beginning, like Rayman 2 to me has this mysticism and this magical quality to it. Rayman 3 is like, it's almost like the directors of this game saying, I'm funny, right? Like, and if you don't think I'm funny, I'm going to say something even more offensive that's funnier.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't find any.
If you're offended, it's your fault.
Yeah. Yes. And it's this game is for the most part is not funny.
No.
It's not interesting. And the gameplay is like fine.
Yeah.
So Nick, what do you have to say? Like felt very angry. Nick, what do you have to say? Huh?
Okay.
What do you have to say for yourself?
I will say I don't have too many kind things to say about this game either.
Yeah.
The tone is very off-putting.
Oh, very.
We didn't mention this earlier. I meant to, but I've never had to do this in a game. I had to turn the voice volume higher than the music volume.
Yeah, it feels unbalanced.
I couldn't hear anything. Like in the very beginning, Murphy's yelling things at you, and I'm like,
wait,
what are they selling?
You had a really funny Murphy comment.
Oh,
you
no.
said if he's like the kind of person where you don't want your kids around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
They turned Murphy into the kind of guy I wouldn't let my kids around.
He's very lascivious. He's very disgusting. Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought some of the gameplay and combat changes they made were good.
Positive,
right?
yeah.
Those are positive. I liked the boss battles. I did not like the bosses in Rayman 2, but I thought the Rayman 3 bosses were pretty good and pretty clever.
Yeah.
And I did get a little scared when the one Canaran guy told me he was going to make me write bad checks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But okay. So some of the gameplay was good. Level design was whatever. The tone was incredibly off-putting.
Yeah.
Couple of good tracks. I mean, at least the game wasn't very long.
It's very short.
So you aren't like suffering.
I feel like Nick, I remember
I'm done. Go ahead.
you and I we were talking in a chat about this. I feel like I coasted through this game.
I did too.
I think I finished it and I said to you, Nick, I said, I feel nothing.
Nothing.
I feel like this is one of the most milquetoast like games I've played in a while.
You know
and it's
what
also offensive.
You know what it is? It's so funny because it's the one that nobody talks about and for good reason.
Yes. Good.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad no one knows it exists.
So it's
I would have been mad if I paid money for this.
Oh yeah.
It sucks because maybe this is better for a super final thought, but so should we just do let's do grades and then final thoughts on the series?
Yeah, sure.
So I am going to give Rayman 1 a B-. I'm going to give Rayman 2 an A-, and I'm going to give Rayman 3 a C.
Okay.
Okay, I am gonna go. Rayman 1 is B-. It's very colorful. I love all the art, but giant flaw is it's like not beatable unless you cheat.
Unless you don't really have a life.
And that's the general consensus of the world, not just me. Rayman 2, I am gonna go B+ because I think it's a very tasteful game. It is very dated, and it's not necessarily the best game to play now. But I do think it's a very tasteful game of that time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the third one, I'm tempted. I'm right between C- and D.
Wow.
Like, you ready?
It's not good.
I'm gonna say C- compared to 2. It's a D. Nick, go.
Oh man, this doesn't happen very often where Nick the intern gives the lowest grades. I think Rayman 1 is a C+ for me. Rayman 2 is a B-,
Okay.
and Rayman 3 is a C.
All right.
Yeah.
That's how I would go for it.
See, very nice.
Yeah.
I think that might be my first C on the show, actually.
Yeah.
Look, it's not good. I think we've mostly said our piece on them. I wanted to ask quickly, did you guys play any of the spin-offs for
Yes.
this series?
Yes.
So we are not going to get into Raving Rabbids, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think those guys they fit the Rayman thing. I feel like they fit the aesthetic.
Yeah.
They're a little minionsy. They're like proto minionsy now.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of annoying. But I didn't really like the direction it took with making Rayman like a mini game.
No,
kind of thing.
not at all.
No.
Rayman was pretty bleak from like 2004 to 2012.
Yes.
Like essentially like
Almost a decade.
late GameCube into the Wii era.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the racing game wasn't great either, a Rayman M or whatever. And so I wanted to ask you, so you guys are going to get into the revivals,
Yes.
Yeah.
on a separate episode, which I don't really have much to say about those. I think they're a better version of Rayman 1.
Yep.
And the thing that breaks my heart a little bit that I feel like Rayman is a dead franchise at this point, but in terms of if I ever wanted to see another one, it's such a shame that Rayman 2 is the only good 3D one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're maybe at that point in gaming where I want to see a little bit of a revival of that genre of game because there aren't a lot of them anymore. You're right. If Rayman 2, like I said before, it fits very much into the games of that time that did that, Banjo-Kazooie, DK, Rayman 2, and I'd like to see it again. I don't think we're gonna get one.
No, it's just, it feels like it's very of its time, and its time has passed. But it's such a shame that it's, just looking back on it, maybe it didn't age as well for some folks. But
Sorry.
It's to me, it will always be one of the better games of that era, and I don't know, it's a weird franchise.
I think there is a little bit of hope for Rayman, though, because there's one thing that gave me some hope. So I know we talked about Rabbids, not gonna get into Rabbids too much, but there is a little series of games called Mario and Rabbids.
Yes.
And the latest one came out, I believe, in late 2022. It's called Sparks of Hope.
Right.
There is a DLC that, as of the time of this recording, has not come out yet, but that DLC will be featuring Rayman.
They could be testing the waters for a return.
They could. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there are some sparks of hope for Rayman.
He's in that like fighting game too, right?
There's a fighting game? Oh shoot, I don't know.
No, like it's like it's not like PlayStation All Stars. It's like one of the other ones.
Oh, okay.
But he's in it, and it's so But it is really odd though that it's like Mario and Rabbids.
I know,
It's like
a weird partnership.
The much more successful student of Rayman, surpassing him.
I'm just saying he's coming back. There's going to be a new Rayman design because this will be the latest game he'll have been in.
Yep.
So you never know.
You never
know.
I don't know. Final thoughts. It's a weird franchise. 2 is like the only one I can wholeheartedly recommend. And you guys got anything else?
I think we're cooked here. We've been going on for a long time. This is a very thorough Rayman discussion.
Love Rayman.
Rayman's a really quirky franchise. I also recommend the second one. And we will catch you next time on Goddamn GameCube, where we are going to discuss Origins and Legends. Thank you, guys.